Hello and welcome to this edition of Stickyeyes in Conversation, where we're talking about what your digital agency should be telling you in 2019. So I'm joined by Michael Hayden and Ryan Saltmer from our search marketing team, and they're going to talk about what the big trends are in SEO and what brands and marketers should be focusing on for the coming year. Okay guys, so it's the start of the new year, lots of predictions get made about what's going to be big in SEO and big in digital for the coming year. So at the start of 2019, what do you think are the big trends that brands and marketers need to be thinking about?
I think really for me, it's mostly focusing on quality content that matches users' intent. While it's nothing new, nothing revolutionary, it's where we've really seen big shifts in the SERPs over the past year. Google themselves have always said focus on quality content that delivers what the user's looking for and you'll do well. It's not always been as simple as that. It's still not as simple as that, but I suppose they've really stepped up in terms of addressing that and making sure that what they're delivering does match the intent for the user, and in terms of how they assess that quality of content as well, to make sure that the user is getting what they're looking for, whether that's a blog post, a piece of commercial content. I think that's really where the focus has been.
Yeah, and I'd echo what Mike says around content, but also really still make the point around technical SEO. So as an agency, it's something that we generally find harder to get resource from a client on. It's tougher to sell in for a number of reasons, but actually really focusing on making sure your site architecture is as good as it can be, your content is to best practice. You know, you've not got a lot of indexed pages that shouldn't be indexed. You know, site speed, we know there's been recent Google updates around site speed and security as well, so focusing on those things alongside, you know, matching that user intent, you won't go far wrong.
About getting those foundations right, there's no point having this great content if the foundations are made of sand effectively.
No, exactly. You know, if you've got really good content but search engines can't access that, they can't read it, and they can't index it, then you're not going to get very far.
The point about content is interesting because obviously one of the big talking points was the update around EAT and how Google has almost kind of clarified what it means by quality content in many respects. Is that your interpretation of that?
Yeah, I think it's always been a thing. It's nothing new. It's probably with recent updates become more important when you think about what a user is looking for. So whether that may be a how-to guide, a video, some well-written content, or all those things in one, actually focusing on what the user is looking for at that stage of the journey is pretty much one of the biggest factors for me now.
Yeah, and I think there's always been quality updates, and I think EAT, or the so-called EAT update, is just another in a long line of quality updates. Before you've had kind of Phantom and Fred, so-called, but all they're really focusing on is quality of the site, quality of content, and looking at that and really understanding that. It goes back to the intent as well, I suppose.
Yeah. So if you were to say to a brand that was kind of thinking, well, we've been doing good content, but actually we lost visibility around October, what are we doing wrong? I suppose how would you kind of answer that question?
I think for me there's a number of things to look at there. So we touched on technical SEO earlier. You can be creating all the great content in the world, but if you've got some fundamental issues that may be holding you back, you may have some content that's not been updated in a long time, and actually over time what the user is looking for has changed. So looking at that, and also the authority angle as well. So, you know, what kind of links are you getting into the site? Are they of positive nature? Is your brand being talked about in the right spaces to you? So showing that expertise, I think, are all really important.
Yeah, and I think you might have the best optimized content, but actually if it doesn't match the intent, then it's not going to work. If your content is really commercially focused, but actually the user is looking for something informational, something to guide them, they're actually more in the discovery phase of search, then Google's got better at understanding that, and that content really needs to hit the nail on the head for what they're looking for. If your page is really well optimized technically and well optimized in terms of the keywords for that page, but the focus is too commercial, there's not enough there to show the user trust and, you know, to guide them if they need that, then it's not going to do well.
But at the same time, you still do need that commercial content in case you've got a user that actually is ready to buy and they are further down that funnel.
Yeah, you need all that content, and you need to understand what they're looking for when you need to deliver that to them. So yeah, if they're searching for something that's commercially focused, then you need that commercial content there. But if it's more informational, inspirational, then the content needs to reflect that.
Okay. So another topic that keeps coming up year after year is voice search, and you know there are more Alexa devices into houses and Google Home devices into houses every year now, it seems. How do you see voice influencing how you guys work and what clients should be doing?
Yeah, I mean, I suppose voice is a growing trend. It's something that's developing. It's still relatively new, but it's one we also have to be aware of as digital marketers. I suppose it's understanding how people are using voice and how they're searching differently for things via voice than they are for desktop, and really looking at that data and how they are searching, and that informing on your content strategy as well, and how you optimize for that in a human readable way.
Yeah, and I think from a technical standpoint as well, so we can think about the way content is structured. We can use things like schema.org to actually really define what we're talking about. From a conversational, informational perspective as well, how do we use conversational search terms in a way that really brings together voice with actually used on a desktop as well, and how we make content work for different purposes.
In many respects, I suppose voice is, you know, the introduction of voice is just how we adapted to mobile coming in. It's just another means of search. Fundamentally, what you guys are doing is generally not different.
Yeah, it's just understanding how they search differently via mobile, via voice, via desktop, and really making sure all of that informs on your strategy.
Another area that's getting a lot of discussion now is how paid and organic are kind of working together a little bit, and how a lot of brands now are not seeing that they've got a paid search budget and an SEO budget. They're kind of complementing each other or trying to work much more holistically. Is that something that you think is going to, again, become much more prominent in the coming year?
It's definitely an interesting point, and it's one that probably as an agency we've had one of the most difficulties with clients, just because paid and organic have generally had two separate budgets, two separate targets, etc. But to really make it work, you've got to have really holistic KPIs that work across both paid and organic. For example, you can't have a paid target to drive traffic if organic is there to drive revenue, for example. There's got to be one combined KPI which we look to tackle, and how you report on that as well is really important.
There's kind of that cultural change, that mindset that you're trying to change, rather than a process as such.
Yeah, exactly. You know, you think about a keyword that may be ranking really well organically. Do you need to pay for that from a paid perspective if none of your competitors are bidding on it, for example? Obviously, pulling back on paid means that actually you're going to probably lose some revenue through that channel, but looking at them together, you actually become much more holistic with your approach.
Yeah, and efficient as well. You know, it's ultimately looking at them as a combined channel or as a combined approach. It's going to drive efficiencies. It's going to save businesses money, but it's just taking that view in the first place and saying, well, we don't actually need to spend on paid here. We can spend on paid here where organic isn't doing so well, and vice versa. Organic can make up where on the areas where you don't have to spend for paid.
Okay, so one final question. If you were to say what is the one big area that a marketer or a brand needs to focus on for the remainder of 2019, what would it be?
I suppose I'd go back to quality content. You know, if brands are focusing on that and really understanding the intent, how users are searching, what devices or what methods they're using to search, and making sure that their content is aligned with that, I don't think they're going to go far wrong. Yeah,
and follow Mike's point on, you know, really focusing on what your customer is looking for. So, you know, serve the right content at the right time of the user journey. Make sure that you're not pushing products in the wrong places, and make sure that site architecture really follows where you want your customers to be at the right time.
Excellent, guys. Thank you very much. That's been Stickyeyes in conversation on what your digital agency should be telling you in 2019. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and you get the next edition. But thanks for joining us.